that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 446th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the astonishing Tom Fennell in the flesh. We don't have new jokes here. We just recycle old ones. But we have a lot of fun with it. Okay, this is the 446th edition of Energy Week with me and him. And every day I get up and look at the news. I look through a couple hundred news items, usually every day, and find...
Basically, that's part of your blog.
That's all part of my blog, yeah. The blog is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com.
What we're seeing here is the best of the blog.
We're seeing the best of the blog. And people who are watching this probably have a link where they can see the different blog, the short blog, where Tom and I developed the show. And the content of that is also downloadable. It's just called Energy Week number 446 as a document which has the text that we work from and the photographs. And there you go. And Tom has something to say.
Well, those two blogs that George has just mentioned have links.
Yeah.
And some of these articles we're going to talk about
Good point.
are very good articles.
Yeah, some of them are.
And some are virtually mandatory.
Yes.
And so to get them, you click on the link.
And you read the
I'll try to
article.
call your attention to the ones I think are worth looking at.
Yeah. Well, we should probably start moving. What do you think?
I think we can.
Okay, we have a picture that Tom will have up on the screen in just a moment. And by the way, if you ever see Tom and he looks like a deer in the headlights, it's because he's trying to do two things at once. One of which is controlling what is actually visible to the audience.
Well, that is an electric airplane. And as I said before the show started, I don't think I'd ever thought I'd see an electric airplane.
And now, we had that one that we talked about, I don't remember how many years ago, that flew around the world.
I don't remember that. An electric airplane flew around the world?
Yeah, it was one guy in an electric airplane, and it took him a long time, but he flew all the way around the world.
Well, these are the way that the batteries are developing. These are good for short hauls.
Yeah.
These are, London to Paris.
London to Paris. We could. The plane that's on the screen is designed to fly basically from Boston to probably
Boston to New York.
I was going to say Washington D.C. It's a 500-mile plane. So
okay, that'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, this is from Clean Technica. What do you have for a title, Tom?
UK-led COP. That's like COP26. Aviation declaration too weak to clean up flying.
Yeah. Boris Johnson has made a bunch of statements which don't make sense to me and to a lot of other people. The UK...
I'm thinking that about him.
Yeah, well, the UK led...
the fact he looks like Trump.
A little bit, except that he actually does have hair up there. And he's not orange yet. The UK-led International Climate Ambition Declaration for Aviation is too weak to reduce flying's climate impact, says Aviation, Transport and Environment, which is the name of a publication, in relying on the UN's International Climate Aviation Organization. The signatories made the same mistakes as earlier efforts. Now, I'll bet you've got a comment on that.
Well, there's two comments here. First of all, the number of global air passengers and cargoes will increase significantly over the next decades. Mm-hmm. That's a duh.
Yeah.
But it's putting pressure on the planet.
It is, and yet I see things developing that, not just electric cargo planes that look like other cargo planes. But
there's going to be new things coming out.
There's going to be new things. A couple of years ago, one of the things that we talked about was a dirigible.
Yeah, which is like a blimp.
It's like
but it's got a framework.
Except it has a framework. And the idea, if I were to go from New York to London, I've done that, gone from New York to London by jet.
Yeah.
You get there and you got jet lag. And
Yeah.
so what that the jet is fast. And if you were on a dirigible, it would take you several hours longer. And so what?
Well, because of the Hindenburg fire,
Yes.
dirigibles stopped.
Yes.
People just wouldn't get on them anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, the Hindenburg was full of hydrogen. Guess
Right.
what, guys? Hydrogen burns.
Hydrogen burns. Guess what, guys?
Now they got helium.
Well, they also have the fact that hydrogen dirigibles filled with hydrogen in those days had to be powered by internal combustion engines. Today they don't.
That's another thing, yeah. Well, in any case, the relying on the UN's International Civil Aviation Organization that we just referred to and its carbon offsetting scheme to achieve net zero in the long term is just another distraction.
Yeah.
Okay, it isn't going to work.
Okay, I've got a picture here. Should I put it up? Of a
Why not?
burnt forest.
Yeah, we got a nice picture.
It's a very
here.
sad forest. All those trees are dead. The bark is falling off.
It's a burnt forest. They don't tell us where, but the article says that fires in the Sierra Nevada, which is in California, likely to grow in frequency. Well, it's been happening already.
It has been. This is from UCI News. Research from the University of California, Irvine, which is the UCI, says that by 2040, as humans continue to change their climate, fire-conductive heat waves will become so common that the number of blazes through the Sierra stands to increase by about 50%.
It's happening as we speak.
Absolutely it is. The study appears in the journal Science Advances. I want to say something about that picture.
Yeah, let's put the picture back.
And that is, what happened here. You notice that those trees have the upper branches still on them. They didn't burn off. And the reason is because the fire didn't get that high. It was on the ground and it cooked the tree trunk to the point where it died, so those branches all died.
Okay.
But down there where the fire was, it's all green now.
The branches are gone.
Yeah, but it's all green.
Well, yeah.
The
Yeah.
one
The sunlight's getting in there now,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
the forest is regenerating
Absolutely.
itself.
The one problem that I have with this is that that forest was a specific group of species of trees that burned. And what is coming in is probably the same species, and they will be subjected to the same type of burning. And what we need is species that don't burn as
And
easily.
we got species that don't burn that easily.
That easily, yeah. Okay.
Well, heat waves often precede the ignition of wildfires.
Yes.
Okay. This comes from, by the way, the University of California in Irvine.
Yes.
Okay, which is a pretty good school.
Is it Irvine or Irvine?
Irvine.
Irvine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not Irving.
Not Irving. Tom and I both lived in Brooklyn at one time.
I had a friend that was his name, but he pronounced it Irving.
Irving? Irving.
Irving.
Oh my gosh. Well, there are places in England where they talk about the kink.
Yeah.
And the kink is
The kink.
the king. and they pronounce that final G, they pronounce it as a K.
Yeah.
And that happens in Yiddish.
And where?
Yiddish.
Does it? Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
And because, you get that thing coming into English, you get a lot of people who say that in the United States, but this is Irvine, V-I-N-E, and adding a K to the end of it is a little
Well, for each 1 degree centigrade rise, which we've talked about, the chance of fire jumps about 20%.
For each 1 degree. Okay.
Yeah. They can cause fuels like dead plant matter to dry fast, and the risk of people accidentally starting a fire is exponentially higher.
As is the risk of lightning starting a fire.
Well, the next thing was lightning strikes in human behavior, such as from tossed cigarettes to arson, or the sparks behind most of the wildfires in the Sierra.
Right.
So it's people doing it. By the 2040s, by the way, average summer temperatures in the Sierra are expected to climb by 2 degrees Celsius.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. That's about almost 5 degrees. Our
I don't think it's that much.
9/5.
9/5. 2 degrees, 4, 3.5.
3.5. I'll take that.
It's close enough. Okay, I'm going to go to the next article.
Oh, you got a nice picture here coming up, too.
And this is a picture of a wind farm in Ireland.
There are wind farms in Ireland.
Yeah.
There aren't any offshore yet, though.
There will be. They're coming.
Yeah, they're planning it. That is an Irish wind farm.
And what do you have for a title? This
Wind
is
Energy Ireland survives for a reduction in energy prices. Now, that's the name of a company.
I think the word was strives, not survives.
Did I say survive? It strives, yes.
Yeah, strives. This is
sorry.
from Energy Digital. Wind Energy Ireland, the representative body for the Irish wind power, called for the reduction in renewable energy prices and overall electricity bills for ratepayers in Ireland. Really interesting. They are calling for a reduction in the prices of the product they support.
Well, I'll mention why. Ireland itself has no domestic sources of fossil fuels.
Yes.
So they have to rely on buying it from
Yes.
somebody else,
Yes,
imports.
absolutely.
So they are dependent on natural gas imports,
Right.
which are in tight supply right now.
They're not only in the
So they're getting squeezed.
and they've got people who are quite willing to say you're going to have to pay more because we say
That's
so.
exactly what's happening.
Yep.
And according to the article, Ireland has some of the best wind energy resources in the world.
In the world. So
They can produce electricity from wind farms at half the price, but only with government policies. And the government
Yes.
has some.
been dragging its feet.
Well, they got some policies just don't make sense.
Well,
The ability to generate turbine heights. Okay, the government's telling them they can't put them up too high.
oh, helpful.
And limitations on the current transmission system.
Well, I don't know if you're aware of it, Tom, but I don't remember whether it's the oldest or just one of the oldest. But one of the oldest, at any rate, wind turbines ever built, and this is going back a long way, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, was built in Ireland.
Is that so?
That's what I've read.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't a windmill, it was an actual wind
I
turbine.
think it was a windmill, but that is a sort of a turbine.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah,
definitely, yeah.
yeah. And
Well,
I
they've
don't
had windmills in Holland for
for a long
a
time.
long time.
Yeah,
We got a very interesting picture coming up here.
which looks like it
This
comes
one
from
is great. I like
Lord
this.
of the Rings. It looks like something that the elves would have had in Lord of the Rings.
Well, believe it or not, that's a bridge, but it's also a tree.
A fig tree,
A
no
fig
less.
tree.
And by the way, fig trees. I told you, I think in the show before last,
Yeah.
that I had picked a fig from a
Yeah,
fig tree in the
yeah.
yard on the 31st of October, and I mentioned that to my landlady, and she said, "Oh, there's still ripe figs there." And she went. We were outside. She just walked over and picked one and handed it to me, and it was good. That was on the 11th of November.
It's slow this year. It's like
I mean, just think about
notice
it.
we
This
don't
is
have much-
mind-boggling.
don't have much of a foliage scene. this
No,
year.
we didn't. But I ate a fig that ripened in Vermont and ate it right off the tree on the 11th of November.
That shouldn't be happening.
It should not be happening. Anyway, this is not
Let's
that
get-
kind of fig tree. This is a different
Let's
kind.
get back and take a look at that bridge.
And this is from
That's called the
CNN.
Ingenious Living Bridges of India.
Yes. The Indian state of Meghalaya.
Well, we will leave that way.
Okay. Gets so much rain that modern bridges will wash away. But living bridges stand up to the torrents. Ingenious groups in northeast India. Indigenous. Well, it says ingenious in the title, but you're right, it's indigenous in the text. In northern India have crafted intricate bridges from living fig trees for centuries. Now this ancient skill is making its way to European cities.
Well, it's interesting. These bridges actually grow.
Yeah.
Meghalaya State includes some of the wettest locations on Earth
Wet.
due to the monsoons
Yeah.
that sweep in from June to September. So what's summer for us is rainy season for them.
Rainy season.
And it's really rainy season.
Really rainy.
The village of, I'm going to say this one, Morsinrim, the world's rainiest place, receives, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
An annual rainfall of 39 feet.
Just imagine that coming down the Whetstone Brook.
Now this state, which I will pronounce as Meghalaya, it
Yeah.
hosts hundreds of these bridges.
Yeah.
And each bridge is composed of a single giant fig tree with a mishmash of aerial roots tightly knotted together and woven.
The fig trees that we're talking about here are a type of banyan tree.
They're not the fig trees.
They're
you're
not
gonna
the
find
fig
in your
trees that
garden.
you find in your garden. And in this particular case, in this picture, they built a bridge. I think they built the lower bridge, and then they discovered that a really bad torrent would wash over that bridge. If you needed a bridge during the rainy season, you'd better build another one higher up. So they built a second one.
another one. Well, some of these bridges date from 600 years ago. They've been
Yeah.
doing this a long time.
A long time.
And some of them can hold up to 50 people at once.
Well, they're alive. What do you
It's
say?
alive.
Okay, we have a picture coming up that I saw this and I said, what in the world is that? And there it is.
What in the world is it? It says it's installing solar panels.
Well, you can tell that there are people involved here because if you look toward the top of the picture in the middle, there's a couple of hands with gloves on them.
They're doing that.
But, on the right side, well, it's somebody's blue jeans or something. And,
Definitely, yeah.
if you look long enough, you might be able to figure out what it all is. This is from starherald.net. What do you have for a title?
Entergy's big bet on renewables.
A lot of people around here remember Entergy as the owner of Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant.
Yeah, right.
It hasn't been for years.
Not anymore, but
It doesn't seem all that long ago when Entergy had grand plans for nuclear power, but the company is now all in on renewable energy. So the surprising thing is how fast renewables will grow. The company gets 1% of its energy from renewables now, but that figure will rise to 17% in 3 years and 33% in 5 years.
sounds to me like they're serious.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Well, Entergy Mississippi, which is just one of the many branches of Entergy,
Yeah.
okay, announced that it will replace aging plants that use natural gas with 1,000 megawatts of energy. That's a gigawatt, boy.
And what's a gigawatt?
A bigawatt, baby. 1,000 megawatts of energy from renewable sources over the next 5 years.
Tom and I are kind of like computers. Computers are notable for never getting bored.
In 5 years, 1/3 of the company's electricity will come from renewables.
Right.
So Entergy's getting on the bandwagon.
It is indeed. Now we've got a picture coming up that
we got some bamboo.
I think this is a fun
Are
picture.
we bamboozled?
Yeah. Okay, this is
It's
from
not a
CNN.
tree, it's grass.
That's grass. That's very tall grass, much taller than anybody I've ever met.
Well, bamboo has been used for thousands of years in Asia. Now it could help solve the construction's sustainability problem.
Strong and flexible bamboo grows fast,
It does do that.
while soft and hard woods can take between 40 and 150 years to mature. Bamboo is ready to harvest in as little as 3 years. When treated and engineered, it can last for centuries. Tom, when I was in college, and I'm going back to 1967 or something, we had a teacher who was who had been drafted into the Navy during the Second World War, but he had a doctorate in zoology. So they, of course, used him for a work that involved his skill, zoology.
Brilliant.
Unusual for
figure
the
that one out.
military. Yeah,
Usually they screw up.
Right.
You got a PhD, they got you shining shoes.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, he was sent to Panama, and he showed us a picture of his hut that he was living in Panama while he was working for the Navy, trying to find species that they could plant so they could grow up.
These putts from Panama, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and they were going to do that in the Pacific War. Use them for camouflage. And his hut, I'm gonna do this on the screen here. His hut in the picture was like that tall, and above it, that tall, was bamboo. So this bamboo,
Wow.
the bamboo was 120 feet tall, and he said he showed us this, and he said that plant is 3 months old.
Wow.
It grew at a rate of 2 inches per day, 24 hours a day. So you plant
You
it.
could almost see it grow.
Oh, you could see it grow. Absolutely. And first day, when it's a day old, it's 2 feet tall. When it's 2 days old, it's 4 feet tall. When it's four days old, it towers over you.
Well, there's an interesting gallery in this link.
Yeah.
It's the selection of 13 pictures, and they're real interesting.
Yeah.
And I'll read what I wrote about it. Filipinos have been using bamboo housing for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And you'll see in the gallery the Bahay Kubo, which is a traditional boxy single-story bamboo hut on stilts. It's indigenous to the Philippines and can be adapted, to create a contemporary home, which you will see.
There's some pictures of that in there, yeah.
And
really
it's pretty neat, really.
It really is.
There's an outfit in Jamaica that's making it.
Oh, really?
Very much like that.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll deliver them to your door they come with a trailer.
A house.
Yeah, it's a little tiny.
Okay.
Well, it's a very small, compact, but usable house. And
Okay, so it's a tiny house.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what they call them.
Yeah, tiny. We have tiny house shows down in the parking lot on Flat Street. Now, across the street from the parking garage, they have tiny house shows down there sometimes.
Okay.
I think once a year.
I don't recall ever seeing one.
Oh, well, you should go down. They're easy to miss because they aren't. If you don't pay attention, you're going to miss them. Okay, our next.
Well, these tiny houses that they're talking about here, these Bahay Kubos.
Yes.
They're nice houses.
Yes.
They're very comfortable looking,
Yeah.
compact, but very nice. And they're assembled in just days.
You got to
They
be
last
careful.
up to 50 years.
If you're going to take one of those, you have to be careful not to trip over your dog because if you do, you're going to fall on the cat. Okay.
Utilizing all available space, loft bedrooms and fitted furniture make the most of these compact homes.
Okie dokie. We're up to Saturday, November 20th, and I've got an item here from Clean Technica.
And we got a picture here.
We have a picture of a Ford F-150 Lightning.
Looks like a regular Ford, except there's something interesting about the headlights or whatever.
Yeah, they look like pin lights or something.
Well, Ford doubles EV production plans, and GM books 18,000 Bright Drops order.
Okay, Ford.
Bright Drop is a GM truck.
The Ford CEO, Jim Farley, announced on Twitter that his company is doubling its EV production goal to 600,000 vehicles by 2023. That is 600,000 per year.
Per year?
Per
That's
year.
a lot of vehicles.
It's a lot of cars. General Motors is moving on its own plans to build Bright Drop battery electric delivery vans. It already has one order for 12,600 of those vans.
So that's what a Bright Drop is.
Yes, that's right.
A delivery van.
Yep.
Well, Ford and GM are both scrambling to be relevant as the EV revolution rolls forward. But Tesla keeps shattering its own production.
I'm writing an article for Green Energy Times about this very thing.
Good.
Okay? If you take Toyota,
Yeah.
Volkswagen, Daimler, which makes Mercedes-Benz, BMW, GM, and Ford, and you take their market capitalizations and add them up, They're only about 2/3 of the market capitalization of Tesla.
Has overcome.
It has passed all of those companies put together in market capitalization. And the reason is not because they're delivering more vehicles, because they're not. The reason why they have that increased market capitalization is
People
because...
are buying their stock.
Exactly, because investors are investing for the future, and they're looking at Tesla, and they're saying, these guys know where the future is going to be.
Yep.
And meantime, the international car sales have just tanked. I'll give you an example. In France, the general automotive market is off 31% this year from what it was last year for the month of October. 31% down. But electric vehicles are up 55%.
But the big guys are dragging their feet.
They've discovered, much to their dismay, that they've dragged it too long, which is why Ford doubled its goal.
That's what's going on.
Yeah. Okay. Move on?
I think so. We've got another picture coming up.
We have a
here.
picture here of Vestas wind turbines.
Is that what that is?
That is.
Huh?
And you know, Vestas is the biggest wind turbine manufacturer in the world. It's a Danish company.
Yep.
And it's about 60% larger than another Danish company that you might know. It's called Lego.
That's what this article's about.
Yeah, and by golly, my attitude toward this is big wind is bigger than big toys.
Real life Lego wind turbines coming soon to a wind farm near you.
Yes. Denmark happens to be the home base of both leading wind turbine manufacturer Vestas and the toy maker Lego. Vestas seems to be taking a page out of Lego's modularity book to help accelerate the pace of manufacturing wind turbines and drop the costs too.
Well, transporting turbine towers and longer turbine blades has become a problem.
A bit of a problem.
Due to the difficulty in maneuvering around legacy infrastructure, i.e. roads, railroads.
Yeah.
Inspired by a children's toy, Vestas has introduced a modular, snap-on concept to lower the cost of wind and turbine nacelles in this particular case.
But also blades.
Well, they haven't, the articles just mentions, but yes.
It mentions
The
nacelles.
modular design is to separate the nacelles into units that are designed to fit into shipping containers.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Meanwhile, Vestas announced a new containerized shipping partnership with the shipping giant Maersk, which is pretty big.
It's pretty big.
Pretty big outfit.
Okay. Should we go on?
Yeah, we got another picture.
This is
coming up
really
here.
interesting to me, and there's a video here. The whole thing is worth reading and watching.
Yeah, it's a screenshot from the quote ocean cleanup video.
Yep, and this is
that's mentioned here.
Yeah,
that's a good video. It's worth looking at.
Oh, absolutely. This is from Clean Technica. We have talked about this before. The oceans of the world have 5 gigantic gyres, which are circular patterns that the water just goes round and round.
It just stays as a giant whirlpool.
Yeah.
Giant whirlpool.
Giant. And in the old days,
and stuff just gets sucked in there and it just stays there for years.
I think the Sargasso Sea was part of that whole thing.
Could have been.
Yeah, and the plastic that floats just gets sucked into that. And so you've got areas there that are just solid plastic on the top of the ocean. And they have been trying to figure out how to get that out. And here is your lead-in.
This video in this article is worth watching. This is a good one.
What's the title?
Beginning of the end of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Okay, the ocean cleanup achieved proof of technology.
That's a company, by
That's
the way.
a company name. The Ocean Cleanup is the name of a company. At the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and is ready to return to begin actual cleaning. In celebration of the milestone, a marine parade welcomed offshore crew back to Canada. They come out of Puget Sound. The video captures...
That's what the video is.
Video captures a bit of that celebration. They were celebrating, and they came back with a whole bunch of plastic, and they had ideas on what to do with it.
Well, this great garbage patch is an actual patch of marine debris located in the center of the North Pacific.
Yep.
That's this one.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, there's like 5 of these on Earth.
There's a bunch.
And what's in them?
Everything.
Toothbrushes, water bottles, cell phones, plastic bags, you name it. If it's plastic and it floats, this is where it winds up
Yeah,
eventually.
I was amazed at the number of laundry baskets that I saw in the video.
And it's also known as the Pacific Trash Vortex.
Pacific Trash Vortex. Now, there's one in the North Pacific,
One in the South Pacific.
one in the South Pacific,
Well,
one in the Indian Ocean.
One of them is between California and Hawaii. One is between Hawaii and Japan.
Oh, so there's two in the North Pacific.
Well, they're the same thing, but they're separated by Hawaii.
Oh,
They
okay.
sort of...
And then there's one in the North Atlantic and one in the South Atlantic.
Yep, they're all over the place.
They're all over the place. Okay, we should go on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's also a Western... Well, okay, the article describes how ocean cleanup does it.
It sure does.
And, finally, the final sentence I have, the ocean cleanup, which we mentioned as a company, brings the trash it has collected back to shore for recycling.
Yeah.
The nonprofit expects that it will be able to remove 90% of the floating ocean plastic by 2040.
That's not all that far away. They're
Not
saying
at all.
90% of it in
They're
18
serious
years.
about this.
They are serious.
And they're making money on it.
Good for them. It's a nonprofit and they're making money anyway. Okay, our next item is from Renews,
And we got a picture of
which is
the
already up, so you don't have
U.S.
to worry
government.
about it. And what do you have for the title of the article?
House passes the, quote, Build Better Act in the United States.
The House of Representatives has passed the Build Back Better Act, which includes support for clean energy and contains several provisions that directly impact the offshore wind industry. The legislation includes long-term clean energy tax credits. It is now going to the Senate for consideration.
So it's not a law yet.
Not a law, and there are some people who
They're fighting it.
There are people who are environmentalists who are fighting this. There are certain parts
I
of it
think
they
I got a
don't
note
like.
about that. I may not. Well, the Build Back Better Act includes the most significant federal investments ever in renewable energy and will propel the offshore wind industry forward in the U.S.
Right.
This is a quote from the article. This is America's last best chance to take timely action to address the global climate crisis. And it is imperative we rapidly accelerate the renewable energy
sure is.
transition.
Now, our next item comes from CNN, and it's got one of
This
my favorite photographs.
This tank has seen better days. It looks like something exploded in the barrel.
It does. It looks like, well, it might have been that it was firing the gun and
That's what I meant, the
and
barrel of the gun.
Yeah, but it could have been that it fired and there was an obstruction in there.
The previous one didn't get out.
Well, that would do it, wouldn't it? Okay, and by the way, you're seeing the tank from behind.
Yeah, you are, aren't you?
Yeah, the area that you see in front, if I can be allowed to use that term, is almost that front wall is almost vertical.
It slopes down.
And in the front of the tank, it's
right.
going
I
to
can
slope
see
down at an angle. And
right.
I want you to notice that there is a tree growing inside the tank.
A tree grows in Brooklyn.
And that
Well,
thing
this looks like it's a burial ground for tanks.
it looks like it. I think it's probably a place where they would use the
Target practice.
target practice, yeah. It would be very handy to be able to
Senior
do that.
Pentagon official warns the U.S. military is, quote, not ready for climate change.
That's right. This is from
Not
CNN.
good news.
Not good news. But this has been the case.
Yeah.
As a senior Pentagon official warned the U.S. military is, quote, not ready, end quote, to handle climate change, a security issue that touches nearly every aspect of planning at the Pentagon. It is not just about ice melting and sea rising. It's about trade routes, supply chains, and much more. And this is something that they've been complaining about for over 10 years. And the Congress, which has been, controlled basically by people who want not to deal with climate change, have been unwilling to listen.
Basically, yes. The Defense Department still lacks a thorough understanding of the threat to its 5,000 military facilities around the world.
5,000.
So climate change is a threat to these guys, and they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs.
Well, they're wishing they could do better. I can tell you that. They're very aware of the problem.
Well, the quote says, if we don't follow and be part of the solution, we will be left behind.
Well, the other thing is that you can bet your bottom dollar that the Russian military and the Chinese military are getting ready for climate change. And if we're not ready for climate change, they've got a big advantage over us.
Absolutely.
Okay,
But it's a myth.
Perpetrated by the Chinese, what can I say? Okay, our next item
Got a nice picture here.
is a map of the United States, and it talks about interconnections seam study.
Well, if you look at the red lines on there, they're talking about places where there should be a heavy-duty interconnect line.
You know, my color blindness tells me that those lines are green, believe it or not.
No kidding.
Except for in the Southwest. That looks red, but everywhere else it
Everything,
looks...
yeah, those lines are red.
Okay, I believe you, Tom. That thing that is called the WIEI seam which has got, it looks
Western
like
Eastern.
Yeah, it looks like a road with a dotted line in the middle. That is the thing that separates the eastern grid, which we're part of, from the western grid. And the third grid is the one that it covers
Down in Texas.
most, but not all, of Texas.
Yep, it's a separate grid.
It's a separate grid called ERCOT, and we have this from Eureka Alert! And what do you have for title for the article?
Macrogrid study. Big value in connecting America's eastern and western power grids. Duh.
Yeah, in the U.S., the eastern grid is a generating capacity of 700,000 megawatts, 700 gigawatts. We should remember that number because we're going to come across...
Gigawatts is gigawatts,
Yeah,
baby.
but we're going to come across a reference to a similar number later on. And I want you to remember 700 megawatts. And the western grid is 250 megawatts. They have only 1,032...
That doesn't make sense.
250,000 and 700,000?
Yeah, and they're connected with 1,320.
Right, so they're connected with practically nothing.
Practically nothing. Well, that's what they say.
Which is not a lot.
All that much.
Better lines to share power would benefit both of them, according to a study. I want to point out one thing, and that is if you're going to share this power, when it goes down, it's going to go down for the whole country, unless you have planned for that properly.
Which they certainly should do. We got the technology.
We've got the technology to do it.
Well, two of the biggest power grids on the planet are connected by 7 small threads.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
And the small threads are high voltage direct current connections.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
The eastern grid, well, we gave them the numbers. So 1,320 megawatts isn't much electricity moving between the
No.
two.
We should go on, Tom. We have a picture of the back end of a Tesla, and every time I see that trademark, I'm afraid somebody's going to grab it and stab somebody. It's just that sharp point at the bottom just gives me the shivers.
What do I have to do? Now I'm getting confused. I'm using the wrong
mouse.
Wrong mouse. Now I got the right mouse, but it's in the wrong place. Come on, you.
Well, how about if I read this while you're doing that?
Yeah.
You're on the right. I see that.
I got
there
it.
Is. Okay.
There it was. I lost the mouse.
Click it. There you go. This is from Clean Technica, and you have a title for the...
Revisiting Elon Musk's 2018 production.
Oh, yeah.
Tesla's market cap. We'd already talked about this.
Yes, indeed. Remember the compensation plan that Tesla unveiled back in 2018 at the time, and that plan was to give Elon Musk, well,
give him a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And he wouldn't take any if it didn't accomplish it. He accomplished it right on the time.
Right. At the time, the New York Times called it, quote, perhaps the most radical in corporate history, end quote, and its experts called the thing laughingly impossible, and that is, quote, laughingly impossible. It is, end quote, it was based on the idea that if Tesla achieved a market capitalization of $1 trillion by 2028, Elon Musk would be given a $55 billion bonus. Ha! It's worth $1 billion now.
Absolutely.
And they said it was laughingly impossible. In under 4 years, he did something they said was laughingly impossible to do in 10.
Of course, Tesla will never be able to sustain such a level of sales. No? Tesla's Berlin Gigafactory has not yet begun delivering vehicles, but it's expecting to do so soon.
It's all sad that people have got themselves so blinded by, the conventional and so forth.
Well, this is what the article says. The legacy brands are still firmly focused on selling fossil vehicles, and that's not likely to change for several years.
Well, I think it's changing.
If the future is electric, the future belongs to Tesla.
Yeah, the fact that Ford has doubled its expected deliveries for 2023, that's only a year off. And they're going from 300,000 to 600,000, shows that they're saying, wait a minute, something's going on here, I don't get it. And the car sales in Europe, down in 31% in France for the overall market, up 55% for EVs in the same market. That means that
something's wrong.
Internal combustion machines are crashing right now in France, in Germany, and you name it, except the United States, where they're just down badly.
Well, once they get to the point where they can refill or recharge this battery in the time it takes to fill a tank of gas,
they're almost
it's all
there.
over.
They're almost
there.
Yeah. Okay.
Then it's all over.
I have a picture that I like much better than that one of the Tesla back end.
Yeah, we got a nice picture here.
Picture of sunrise. How do I know it's sunrise, Tom?
I don't know. It says so.
That's my word I put on there.
Oh, okay.
You got
looks like a thunderstorm.
It looks
there.
foggy.
Right in the middle, that's a thunderstorm.
Yeah, I know, but the low areas look foggy. They wouldn't look like that at night. I used to live on a mountaintop. Yeah. Believe me, you don't see fog in the valley in the evening.
At night, right.
Okay.
Can the sun's 11-year cycle explain global warming?
Climate skeptics have long argued that solar activity can explain global warming. Well, the finding of a controversial near 11-year cycle in solar activity prompted comparison to a similarly long cycle related to climate change. A study published in Climate Dynamics found that they don't match. You cannot synchronize them.
Well, this was from the article, lack of synchronicity argues quite vigorously for the physical effects of the solar cycle on climate change being quite weak.
Yeah.
Okay. Thus of no real consequence for global warming.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have us go on.
Oh, the picture of one of these weird-looking things, huh?
Well, it says oil rig. Personally, I don't think that is an oil rig. I think it's a nodding donkey.
I think so too. I was just going to say something like that. Well, this is the comic relief department.
Yes.
Shell CEO says the best way to finance clean energy is to consume more oil.
Oh. The best way to clear up your credit card debt is to spend more and earn less.
Just people saying that.
Yeah, I know. This is from Clean Technica. Climate scientists agree that we have to stop burning fossil fuels very soon to avoid climate catastrophe. Not slightly reduce it, end it. Ben van Beurden, chief executive of Royal Dutch Shell, says the best way to finance that is by buying oil.
That's what he said. His company wants to transition to net zero by 2050, but they're going to need the income from the oil and gas business to pay for it.
Well, you know, what can I say?
If we have to build a hydrogen plant from a wind farm that we build in the North Sea for $1 billion, that's not going to be funded by the hydrogen business. It will be funded by the oil and gas business.
Well, I got news for you. The Tesla business was not funded by oil, gas, or internal combustion machines.
No kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
When did they start making internal combustion cars at Tesla?
They didn't.
They didn't, of course.
That's
not.
right. They didn't have any of that stuff.
Well,
They
the
just said,
takeaway
"We're
here
gonna
is
do it."
big oil doesn't just want a seat at the table; it wants to own the table.
Well, I think there may be some truth in that.
I think there is.
Yes, indeed. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we get some more of these funny-looking things here.
Yeah, more of these funny-looking things.
There is a wind farm. They don't tell us where it is.
I found this at Unsplash. I don't remember where it is. Let's see. I don't remember where it is.
Good-sized wind farm.
It's a good-sized wind farm. Could be anywhere.
Greenflation, new word for me. A
Yeah.
risk for renewable energy, but long-term viability is intact.
Right. Rising prices of commodities needed for renewable energy will increase the costs of setting up new green power projects, but this will be balanced by better access to funds and economies to scale, a European Bank for Reconstruction and Development officer said. In other words, prices are going up, but they're not going up remarkably fast, and it's not.
Well, the article says there will not be cheap money for anything that's a climate risk.
Right.
Okay? The market is for renewables.
Yeah.
The costs that will fall with economies of scale include permit fees and installation labor.
Yep.
So the renewables are getting cheaper, as we know.
Yes, we do. We do.
I mean, solar's been getting drastically cheaper.
Well, and batteries are going down by something
Batteries
like
are getting better every day.
23% per year. How long can you maintain that? You know,
Well, I think with batteries, there's a long way to go. I mean,
there's a long way to go. That's the thing that's really amazing. They have come down in price so much, and you can just look at them and say, but they're going to come down more. We talked last week about a
flow battery.
It was a flow battery that they were building to put into cars.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I say, if they can do
It's
that,
impossible.
if they can do that, they can recharge the battery in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, that's what's going to happen. When that happens, the internal combustion engine will have a funeral for it. It'll be over.
It'll be over.
Fini.
Fini. That's right. That's a good. What is that? It's Slovene word.
Huh?
Fini. Is that a Slovene word? Is it? It's not Bulgarian.
I thought it was French.
Oh, it's French. Amazing. You're so smart. Okay, we have an item from Mexican News Daily and a new picture of another wind farm.
Looks like a wind farm to me.
Looks like a wind farm. And that
And they're
wind farm,
Mexican wind
by
farms.
the way, is in Mexico. And it did come from the office of the President of Mexico.
Without support for renewable energy, General Motors won't invest in Mexico.
This
And this
hurts.
is the GM head of Mexico.
Yes. General Motors CEO in Mexico, Francisco Garza, said that GM and other companies won't invest in Mexico in the short or medium term without legal and structural framework that supports the production of renewable energy. And this, of course, is in response to the president of Mexico basically saying he doesn't like renewable energy, and trying to make things as difficult as possible.
Okay, this guy's not the president of Mexico. He's General Motors CEO
General
for
Motors.
Mexico.
That's right. He's the president in General Motors in Mexico, but the president of the Republic of Mexico
Does
not like renewable
Okay,
energy.
so these guys are kind of fighting each other.
I think so.
Well, according to a quote from Garza, the country will cease to be an important investment destination. Okay, the money that was going to be invested in Mexico will go to the U.S., Canada, Brazil, China, and Europe. Mexico will cease to be an important investment destination.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. I think he's
So
right.
the money is not going to flow into Mexico.
Well,
So-
GM has committed to investing $27 billion in 2020 and 2025 to accelerate its transition to manufacture electric and autonomous vehicles. This is in Mexico.
Yeah.
So this guy who's heading up GM Mexico sees what's going on.
Yes. Okay.
Let's move along here. We got
have
a
a-
picture of a nuclear plant.
And this is the Millstone Plant, which is in Connecticut.
It's a big plant.
And it is operating. It's one
Yes,
of the,
it's in New London and it's still operating.
and it's one of the. I
one
think,
of the biggest in the country.
and it's also, I think, one of the
Oh, it's not one.
Two, I think, that are in New England that are still running. I think the other is Seabrook.
Well, I'm not going to argue there. But
I might
think
be
you're
wrong
right.
about
I
that.
think you're right.
This is from Popular Science.
Biden's Infrastructure Act, big on 3 types of green energy technology.
Right. Now, if you remember a few items back, I said there are some environmentalists who are not happy about these infrastructure bills and things like that. A report from Princeton University's Zero Lab shows that by itself, the signed infrastructure package won't do much to bring down the country's greenhouse gas emissions. The package backs hydrogen in ways that are mostly not green, carbon capture, and nuclear power.
Well, that's why there's objection to this.
Oh, there sure are objections.
There's only $400 million set aside for renewable energy research in the Act.
Yeah.
Okay, hydrogen gets 10 billion, nuclear gets 6 billion, and 12 billion goes towards carbon capture. And they're getting...
What an incredible waste of money.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Why are you going to capture carbon? You weren't going to be burning the fossil fuels to begin with.
Well, that makes a lot more sense to me.
Sure does. And by the way, you know that article that we talked about, I think it was the show before last, that was titled "Nuclear Won't Save the World, It Won't Even Help."
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote that. It went to Green Energy Times. After the show, I took it and I sent it to Clean Technica. It went up last Friday, so it's been up.
It's now on Clean Technica. Good.
Yeah, it's been up
good article.
For a little less than a week.
You did your homework.
It has had 700 comments
Already. Good.
It's had, I don't know how many views, but it's closer to 20,000 than it is to 15,000. And people are livid about what I said. A lot of people are into nuclear energy, and they just want it to succeed.
And
And
that picture of nuclear energy.
yeah. Anyway, do you have more about this particular?
Well, the only thing I can say is, nuclear energy was a flash in the pan. And now they don't know what to do with the waste.
Yes, they still don't know what to do. They want to create more waste, and they don't know what to do. But the big issue here, as far as I'm concerned, let's not worry about waste. Let's not worry about safety. We can argue about those. Those have been argued about for ages and ages and ages, and nobody's being moved from one side to the other. The big issue here is, why would you pay extra for it? And I'm not talking about 5% extra.
No,
I'm talking about 150% extra.
It's no longer competitive.
It's no longer competitive. And that article goes into the question of, how much does it cost to build a solar plant where you've got a big enough field of solar power and big enough batteries that you can deliver the power that you would expect to get from a nuclear plant 24/7, all day long, all night long, in the dead of winter in Georgia, where they're building those plants. And it turns out, if you do that, you save 35%. That's kind of hard to argue with. And you don't have Price Anderson, and you don't have
investing groups that are against this. I mean,
yeah, and people who are very impressed with the idea that a small reactor can get you a lot of power, and that you can have a tiny bit of metal giving you more energy than a train load of coal.
Yeah.
And these are impressive things. But does impressive really pay the bills and keep?
It's not doing it so far.
Okay, we should go on. I think.
Yeah, we got a picture of a flood in Australia.
Of all places to have a flood, here it is, Australia.
Nice flood.
This is
nice trees there in the foreground. I like
aren't they? Yeah. This is from BBC.
Australia declares La Niña weather event has begun.
A La Niña event has developed for the second year in a row, Australia said. This is Australia's climate office.
I'll explain the second one on La Niña is.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, I've heard it before.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting what it is.
Yeah. This means there is a greater risk of floods and cyclones. A cyclone, by the way, is not a tornado. A cyclone is like a hurricane.
It's a hurricane, just,
Yeah.
another name for hurricane.
They used to call tornadoes cyclones when I was a kid, living in the Midwest. Cyclones coming! Last time the La Niña contributed to, quote, once in a century, end quote, rains in parts of Australia, but the phenomenon has significant weather effects across the globe.
Well, El Nino and La Niña are the warm and cool phases of a recurring climate pattern across the tropical Pacific.
Yes.
Okay? The pattern shifts back and forth regularly every 2 to 7 years, and each phase triggers disruptions of temperature and precipitation, creating a cascade of global side effects.
Yes.
And what the article says here is La Niña can increase the risk of storms in Canada and the northern U.S., often leading to snow.
Right.
The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration warns that La Niña will extend through the northern hemisphere, this northern hemisphere winter into spring.
Okay. All right.
So it could mean we're getting more spring, more snow.
More snow. More snow is not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it isn't.
Especially if you're living in Vermont. There's an old saying, by the way, Tom, and the saying is year of snow, year of plenty.
Oh, yeah?
And the reason is because if the snow blankets the ground,
You got,
the microbial activity can continue under the snow because it blankets the ground and insulates it.
that's interesting.
And so in the spring, when the farmers start planting, the
They
soil,
like a heavy snow, huh?
they like a lot of them, and the not terribly fertile Vermont land is more fertile than usual after those snows. Okay, our last item is from the Nasdaq.
Which is an online stock exchange, by the way.
Not necessarily online. It's older than that.
Well, yeah, they picked up the over-the-counter market.
They much of it, yeah. Yeah.
So they're the second largest stock exchange after the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, and it used to be that they were the third largest after the New York and the American. And the American has...
American kind of got absorbed by the New York.
Did it? It might have.
I don't. Business.
I don't remember.
Well, the outlook on the renewable energy infrastructure is what the title says.
Okay. The transition from fossil fuels to renewable energies is inevitable. This is according to Nasdaq for the energy sector, but it looks to be a similar territory for investors in the long term. Current contracts for renewable energy are structured almost identically to those in the current energy infrastructure industry, which means...
It's kind of confusing. They're not talking about the energy industry, they're talking about the energy infrastructure.
But the important thing here is that
It matches.
Nasdaq, which is the stock exchange,
Yep.
which publishes news, on a kind of an ongoing basis, says that investors can feel safe about investing in renewable energy because
they look at the model created by the
Right.
Infrastructure.
Yep, the contracts are very similar, and so they can say, yeah, well, you're not in all that unfamiliar territory. It's still going on the way that it has.
Well, within the energy infrastructure industry, operators are working to increase their use of renewable energy for their own use to reduce emissions.
Yeah.
Further growth of a grid that can handle input and output from alternative sources only means growth for the industry.
Right. That picture, by the way, if you look at the caption, you'll see that it comes from Pexels, which is a place that you can go to get free pictures. And
is that what it is?
Yeah. See, there's a bunch of them.
I have seen Pexels, wondering what it was.
Yeah. And CC0, Unsplash is another one, and CC0 means this particular picture is in the public domain. It is not protected by any copyright. So there it is. There's our show. We have one last slide to put up, which says, have an admirably gorgeous week, and then we can wave goodbye.
Well, let me get us up here.
Us, yes, let's do that.
So that
so that
we can wave goodbye.
goodbye.
Adios. Y'all come back and see us now. You
I
hear?
knew you were going to say that.